Greetings, everybody. My name is Burt, and I am the host of Hearts for the Homeless. This morning, I've got two dear friends of mine, Billy Bishop, former president of Homeless Not Hopeless, and Deacon Dick Murphy, who is the treasurer of Homeless Not Hopeless. And what we'd like to do is give you, the audience, an overview of what Homeless Not Hopeless is. Maybe you've heard a little bit about it, maybe you haven't heard, and this is an opportunity for a story to be told. I became involved with the homeless situation in 1993 at the Hyannis Salvation Army, and I was just really struck with the desperation and the men and women that were homeless, and seemingly just no way of getting out of it other than, waiting for a Section 8 housing certificate to come in. They were poor, many of them suffering from mental illness, addiction issues, age, physical problems, but essentially poor. And the waiting list was years to get a housing voucher that would enable them to get into housing. In terms of the homeless themselves getting together with maybe their disability checks and renting a place, it didn't seem possible because there was an attitude out there, really a prejudice, that you can't rent, you don't rent to homeless people. They'll end up destroying the place. And there was some evidence of that. But again, how much evidence I never knew, but it just seemed that that just wasn't something that could be done. Around 2002, I met Mr. Billy Bishop, and maybe Billy, you could just tell a little bit about where you were at that time and how Homeless Not Hopeless began to be formulated and in time a reality.
Thank you, Alan. Where was I at that time? I was homeless living at Betty's Pond up the end of North Street, up on the hill, right in front of the pond. Probably the coldest place in Hyannis. But, and I'm talking about living year-round there because at the time the shelter was full. And if you didn't get there early enough in the afternoon, you didn't get a bed. So that meant that you had to find another place to live, to sleep for the evening. And I was always a firm believer of out of sight is out of mind. And so I hid. And my attitude was terrible, for sure. I was drinking. I wasn't breaking the law, so I wasn't a nuisance to anybody, but to look at me, I wasn't pretty to look at either. My attitude was, what am I doing here? I thought I was a better person than to ever end up on the street homeless. I worked hard my whole life. I got hurt. I couldn't work anymore, and I ended up on SSDI, Social Security Disability. And I had a check every month, but no place to live, and that was the bottom line, no place to live. And not that I wasn't grateful for the NOAA shelter, because I certainly was. There are nights that you can't live out there. You will die out there. You will definitely die out there. Mother Nature treats a human being just like a piece of steel. It'll rust you, it'll ruin you, it'll destroy you, and it will kill you. So with that, I knew this, and I knew I had to do something. This wasn't going to last forever. And I went to Allen. And that summer when they tore down all the camps and forbidden all the homeless people to camp anywhere or sit anywhere, you had to move along, you couldn't do anything, things got really desperate. And make no mistake about the summertime. Summertime, you walk around with everything you own, carrying everything you own in 90-degree temperature, that'll kill you too. But normal citizens, who they call normal citizens, are looking for an air conditioner. But you're out there in the hot sun, and you're not wanted on the beach. So where do? You go to the woods. where you can't be seen, where you can't be embarrassed or humiliated any more than you already have been. So my frame of mind wasn't the best, but at least I had that little bit of thought that, and this is how it actually really started, that little bit of thought that if we could pool our checks together, we could get a house. But between the first month and the last month and the security deposit, we didn't have a chance. The few dollars we had to go to survival. You know, we were buying gas for the Coleman stoves and trying to stay alive, trying to heat, trying to do everything, eat, heat, whatever we could do with it. And it just seems as though we never could put the whole thing together. There just wasn't enough money to go around to do it. That's what it amounts to.
There was a money issue, Billy, but there was also, I mean, you were just talking about it a little, a dysfunction, a sense of low self-esteem. What have I done with my life? You know, who have I, embarrassed
I can remember.
my family?
I can remember one distinct thing that I was sitting on a fallen tree one day. I happened to be out by myself, and I only can tell you how I felt. But I'm sure there was other homeless that feel the same way. But here I was, at one time, a successful businessman. I had a 30-ton captain's license, and I owned a 60-foot Novi, and when I got hurt, I had to sell it. Well, after years and years and years of being homeless, the money disappeared, of course. I had to use it to live. And I remember sitting on that fallen log thinking, how in the name of God did I get here? Oh my God, I'm a better person than this. My self-esteem was at the size of a cashew. I kid you not. I had lost everything. I had lost hope, I think. I really hoped that I could ever get out of the situation I was in. And
so feeling pretty low and powerless.
Terrible. I mean, how can you feel? How would a person think of himself? I'm sitting there and I'm dirty, rotten, filthy pants, hadn't been changed in 2 weeks. Won't even talk about my underwear, dirty jacket, clothes. I mean, good God, how do you think you'd feel about yourself?
Kind of like the pit of despair.
Absolutely. I mean, come on, let's face it. You know, you're certainly not ready for church, right, Dick?
That's right, for sure.
Nobody will let you in the door. But
maybe this would be a good juncture. So you said you're able to talk about yourself, but I know, Dick, for many years you worked as a chaplain in the jail. Maybe you could share some of your experience of talking with, I don't know how many people that were in that pit of despair, and what did they need?
It's an interesting, but unless you solve the issue that Billy's been at, unless you deal with the self-worth issue, then there's no hope of getting anyone out of the woods. There's no hope of keeping them out of jail. Our recidivism rate is 65% in this state. So a lot of people go back to jail. So unless you make them help them feel better about themselves, then they're going to just keep going back to jail. It's that simple. I've asked a number of inmates over the year, a number of people over the years, on a scale of 0 to 10, and 10 you feel great about yourself, 0 you feel yuck, lousy. Where do you fit? Not me doing a social study. It's them telling me, and they say 0. And many have said over the years, -5. I feel so lousy about myself. Can't even use words to describe what they've said about. So unless you hit that issue, and then you say, okay, I'm a deacon in the Catholic Church, you say, what's the antidote? How do you fix that? And the answer is you love them. So now you begin to realize that all these people that have dirty clothes on, that have that, that look on Main Street, what you're looking at is, you're looking at someone who wants to be loved. And if you love them and treat them with respect, they respond. Now they're afraid they're going to get hurt again, so there's, you got to make a friend. It's a slow process sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't work, but just like anyone listening to this show, we all want to be loved. And when you love people, they respond. When you give them respect, they respond to it. When you allow them to take a position of responsibility, they just flourish. You say, me? You're going to give me a job? I'm going to run this place? Wow. And it's amazing. It's so simple, but it works.
And these are the kind of people like I was. I was sitting there, and this is what was going through my mind at the time. My God, look what a mess I've made out of my life. I've embarrassed my family. I've humiliated them. Every lousy thing I could do to the ones I loved. I lived with that every day. That's why I had absolutely no self-esteem, no worth, no anything. And when you're really feeling like that, like I was, what do? You hide.
Of course.
You drink more.
Well, I'm not worth
you
getting
get
better.
worse.
I don't matter.
I
I'm a
know,
nobody.
and this is what happens, and this is what these people out there who refuse to come in, like I did. I refused to come in because I was so humiliated. I'd done so much damage along the line that I didn't know which way to turn.
So you become hopeless and you give up.
Yes, I believe I was hopeless at one time.
Well, I remember in 2002 when the town of Barnstable officials decided to go into the camps in the Hyannis area, or destroy the camps, put signs out that you'll be arrested if you come back, that created a frenzy of fear among about at least 20 of the homeless people. And Reverend Bob Huff, myself, and Martha McKeon, homeless advocate, we got together some money and we rented Sean McCroll State Park for 2 weeks, and then the Miles Standish Park later on in the summer. And I was really taken, that's when I really got to know you, of how there was this one woman there who was pretty much usually very isolated and not doing well, and suddenly she became an authority. I mean, she was a leader in the group. And I saw other people, homeless men and women, that before I never would have believed would have become such a influential in a positive way force in taking care of not only themselves, but of each other. They had a piece of dirt that was their own. And it really
And they weren't living in fear of the police, of being humiliated and embarrassed because of how they looked. They were taking showers every day. Homeless people, when they work together, I've lived this. There was 3 or 4 different people that I hung with all the time. And that's how we survived. So I knew we had the talent, the common sense. I still had enough common sense left, I guess. I knew as a group we could work together, because we were all experiencing the same feelings, the same experience every day. We were living that life, but yet we were still pulling it together.
Right, but you were always on the run.
Always lived in fear. The police were our biggest fear, that we would be arrested. So living with that every day was a horror show in itself. You didn't dare stay too long here, too long there. That's why they go to the woods and they hide in the woods where they can't be bothered or be ashamed anymore, you know?
Well, I was really struck with, it became like a new vision of, if somehow the homeless, or at least some of them, could be given, a hand up, just given a chance to make it on their own, who knows what would come of that. And that ended up, and you really were my educator for the homeless at that time, and we ended up in, as you probably remember, a few conversations, what if?
What if?
What if we could find a landlord, a place where some of the homeless could live, and that we could prove to ourselves and to the community that the homeless could be housed in a safe, affordable way, a model that could then, better address.
And the summer was coming to an end, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And the fear in me was, where are we going to go from here? Now, what are we going to do, go back to the woods and be locked up, be arrested, and rousted and assaulted and everything else again? Those camps were a sanctuary for every one of those 20 people that were there. They were starting to feel better about themselves. They were all working together, and they were starting to feel better. But I also heard that everybody talk, what are we going to do now? Come when this Golden Pass runs out at this campground, where are we going from there? We all going back to the woods? We've grown now. We're feeling better about ourselves. I know I was. You know, I was starting to feel human again. People were talking to me again in the campgrounds and stuff. You know, they weren't insulting because we did have clean clothes on, and our attitudes had changed. We were starting to live a little bit, you know.
So it was all coming together, and a number of the churches that had been involved with the Overnights of Hospitality program, which was an alternative shelter program where homeless men and women were going to the churches on the Cape. There were about 44 churches involved with that. We got some donations in, and we approached the Hyannis Yacht Club, right?
Yacht Club, right.
And they were willing to, again, give us
Take a chance. Take a chance.
and they rented a 5-bedroom and a 10-bedroom house.
Correct.
And for men to move in and women to move in. And
And
suddenly,
the miracle began.
the miracle
Because we
began.
were about to do something that people said just won't work. It'll never, never work. You people are wasting your time, a fellow told me. And he was a politician right here in Hyannis. You guys are wasting your time. That's never going to work. Homeless people aren't that bright, was the word he used.
There's a lie.
I know.
There's a lie.
I know. Well, we proved it. It's a
Well
lie.
camouflaged. but
That's right.
not-
Well
not done.
camouflaged. Yeah.
But there needed to be some leadership, and certainly
Absolutely.
you, Mark, and Mary Ann were leaders, and so it was beginning, and then we realized shortly after that we needed to develop the board of individuals that had some power out there in the community, and that's when I think we brought Dick in because of all your years with the church, being a deacon, a chaplain up at the jail, that there was some credibility because we needed credibility
Mark,
I'm not
before
too
we
sure
could
that was
prove
the
it.
right move. But
Mark and Mary Ann said, we need somebody with some real credibility. I said, Richard Murphy.
Yeah.
Dick and Dick Murphy.
that was when I got hooked.
What was your sort of initial thoughts about the whole thing? Did you have reservations, or did your faith just tell you?
No, because it was a natural. I had just retired, left the jail, and after 20 years, did my 20 and got out, as I say, and a lot of the men and women that on the street in Hyannis were people I knew in jail. So it was just a natural move for me. So I was really happy in the beginning to really get involved in it, and still am, because there's one thing I know is that the work we did in the jail, and we used to bring in a bunch of people and do retreats inside the jail, and the sheriff would accommodate us, which is an amazing thing. But I worked with the residents, and then I said, if it worked there, it's got to work here. And then I got involved with you guys, and I saw it working. I said, this is being blessed by God. There's no doubt about it. It may sound trite to some people, but I'm telling you, I saw it there. Just amazing miracles. And I see it here. Amazing miracles. There's divine intervention. It's that simple. Right? I mean, you look at the model. You look at, you have homeless people started it with little help, and they have flourished. Gone from five bedrooms to 40 beds, right? And now in the process about to add 4, and one paid employee and managed by homeless people, all people that came out of the woods, in to live with us with no sense of self-worth, saying, hey, I got my own place now. This feels good. I can get my mail now someplace, right? I got my own bed.
Take a bath, shower every day.
I know, yeah.
That's a biggie.
And they get treated with respect.
Absolutely.
Negativity is not allowed. That's part of the ground rules. And you say, that can't be that simple. It is that simple.
In the amount of money that has been saved the state from not going to detoxes, hospital visits, psych centers, because we've taken people out of all those places. We've taken people right out of the woods, right out of the ER, detoxes, psych hospitals, shelters. These are all people that would repeatedly go back to the hospital and the detoxes and the huge expenses. And so we had the 2 houses going on Ocean Street, and we were gathering credibility along the way with Dick and just
others,
the community
and others.
Right. And then in, what was it, 2010? Ken, that we did some fundraising, which we still need.
Thank you,
Right.
Lord, yeah. I think there's one thing they need to say is that we do not take any federal estate money.
Right.
So all that we do comes from private donations, from churches, from private
Correct.
individuals.
In from the community fees
from
from
the
the people
communities.
living there. Everybody pays their way. It's very affordable.
Yeah, and everybody has chores. Everybody, if they have any kind of a drug problem, they're expected to address it, either by going to AA or NA or something, counseling, one-on-one counseling. Any unacceptable behavior in the home is dealt with on a everyday love and caring and chances. I want everybody to know that. We don't throw anybody out for frivolous foolishness. You have to really step out of line before we're going to ask you to leave. I was accused one time. It hurt my feelings too, because I lived out there. I know what those guys and gals are doing, and it's not easy. It's not easy. But I was accused at one time of giving a guy too many chances.
Huh.
Well, guess what? That gentleman doesn't live with us any longer. He's back living with his 2 sons, happily, and he hasn't had a drink since. And John started out with us back in 2007, so that's a miracle all in itself. Too many chances, no such thing. No such thing. I had 1,000 chances, I think. I'm sitting here today. I'm a different guy. I'm a different guy, and I'm a happy man. I never ever thought that would ever come true again in my life. I'm just blessed. This whole thing is a blessing from God. There's no question in my heart and mind.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
In almost everybody needed a number of chances to make it there.
Absolutely.
The way I see it is they were loved back to life, and once they were back alive again, because they were walking dead people before, they were in a self-destructive path, many of them, that once they were loved back to life, then they were, because the big aspect of Homeless Not Hopeless, which maybe people don't understand, is it's an educational organization. We teach people how to maintain that health and well-being, whether it's, daily living skills, developing communication skills, various social skills, learning how to manage their money, and other things, is that we teach them how to maintain that being functional.
We teach them how to love again. That is so important. And accept love again.
Yeah, to learn to trust.
Learn to trust. This is so big, so big.
That's it. That's it right there. Once
Yep.
they get over that hurdle,
Yeah.
they got it.
And I think many of them feel, get a little biblical here, they feel saved. They feel saved by the grace of God.
Yep.
I say plainly that if you have someone living in the woods who's on a path to destruction, to death, really,
To
right?
death.
We lose
No,
20 every
there's
year or more.
Oh
right?
yeah, 22 one year.
So you have someone living in the woods who's slated to die, reality, right? And then you yank him out of the woods, treat him with respect, you love him, and he starts to flourish. I say that's being raised from the dead. Literally. You can, I don't see much difference in that and Lazarus coming out of the tomb in Scripture,
Well, I'd like to think that I'm an example of that. It seems to me years ago you said to me, and it scared me because I wasn't ready to hear this at all, but you mentioned of the fact that there was some concerned people in this town wondering whether or not I would make it through another winter. That's scary. That's scary.
And you probably wouldn't have.
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind I wouldn't have. I went from 240 pounds to 97 pounds by the time I went for help.
Yep. Yeah.
So I don't think I would have made another winter. But for the grace of God, I ended up in those camps, and I got a chance to get a little bit of my health back, and then I went off to, thanks to Judge Joe Reardon, I'll never forget him. He saved my life. He helped me, boy. He put me in Bridgewater and got me sobered up, and I never thought I'd thank him for doing that, but I am today. But that was the beginning of my little journey. It wasn't a little journey, it was a long journey. I went from Bridgewater to Gosnell, which was another blessing in my life, and I had wonderful counselors over there that made me see the light, I guess. And then I went from Gosnell to the Stephen Miller House, and then I went from the Stephen Miller House to the Champ House to the Pilot House to Alan Burt's house.
Yep.
So,
Well, you know, it's kind of funny because I remember once at one of the board meetings that you were saying to Judge Reardon, that retired Judge Reardon, that you used to be my judge and I was under your thumb. Now I'm president of Homeless Not Hopeless, and you're my board member. You're under mine. And it was a nice little laugh there.
Yeah.
We have just about 5 minutes to go. Homeless Not Hopeless was able to buy their first house, I believe, in 2011,
Right.
and then again, and that was like 10 men there. And then what was it, about a year ago, Dick, that we
Yep,
bought
year
a
ago,
second
bought
house?
second house, yep.
well, the second
For
house.
women, and it's just, it's flourishing. And what's an interesting thing is that our waiting list for women is growing. There is. We didn't have that house for women open, which is really a beautiful house on Main Street, just a beautiful house. We didn't have that house open, though we had women knocking on the door looking for a place to live. We never realized there were that many women who were in trouble. It's just they hide better than the guys do, really.
Oh, yeah.
So now we're looking now at adding beds and trying to.
You know, one thing I'd like to say about the women that's so important. Picture your sister. I have 5 sisters, and I don't know what I'd do if one of my sisters were out there. I've seen how those women live out there, and oh, it's not, you know, it's tough enough for the men. We're built differently. We're stronger physically, and I don't know how the women do it. I really don't know. We've lost so many women, and I understand that because they're not as strong as the men, but I don't know how anybody could turn a woman away. It's just, that's always bothered me terribly.
And there's a myriad of reasons, you know, how people become homeless. Sometimes it's age, sometimes it's physical disability, it's mental illness, it's addiction issues, it's
Domestic
poverty.
violence.
It's just
That's
poverty.
a
It's
lot of
domestic
things. Sure,
violence,
sure.
and you know, we, as individuals and as communities, need to, as you once said, it's time to wake up and step up.
Yeah.
And we need to recognize we have brothers and sisters that are suffering in our midst, and we can't keep turning our head the other way. We just can't do that. So Homeless Not Hopeless is growing. It's got like 40 or so beds. We're adding more beds.
We're in
There's
the
still
process
more-
of adding 5 beds.
There's still more work out there
Well,
to be done.
We just need to continue to grow to add more beds because the need's there. You know, I guess maybe when we satisfy the need, we can say, good job, but I don't think the day's going to come. I think it's just going to continue to get worse. You know, the economy is in bad shape, and that's part of the social issues, you know. So.
Well, I know at times at the board meetings, and I know I've been one of those, that I start to get a little worried that we're getting too big, but you have been that continual voice. There's more people out there.
Yeah.
We've got to
Yeah.
keep getting bigger because there's people out there.
And God's blessing us. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about it. Just
He lives
everything-
in our houses. I'm
everything we
telling you.
need, everything we need, we get. There are people listening to the show today who are going to be moved, and that's the hand of God reaching out through the TV set to someone to say.
So if
"I need
people
to
want to
help these
donate,
people."
they make donations to Homeless Not Hopeless Incorporated, 310 Ocean Street, Hyannis, 02601. You know, I think about various organizations, and there are a lot of important, necessary organizations out there. But for those of you interested, this is an organization that takes people. You know, you'd like to think that when people fall to the streets, that there's a safety net that grabs them and protects them, and that's been largely missing. And Homeless Not Hopeless can't do all of the work, but it's certainly doing a significant part of it. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that close to 300 people have passed through the doors of Homeless Not Hopeless in the past 5 years.
85% of them are in their own housing now.
Exactly.
It isn't that they go back to the street. 85% of the people
Exactly.
that come to live with us move on to.
Our goal has always been to keep them as long as we possibly can, and by doing that, it gives us a chance to place them in their own homes somewhere,
Exactly.
somehow.
I want to thank both of you. Our time has run out, unfortunately. A very important topic, and we will be back addressing this issue. And God bless all of you. Please donate. Thank you so much.
I often think about the way we live today. We seem so sheltered and so cold. Sometimes I wonder, what would Jesus have to say if he were here to see the world that we have sold?